Where's my duct tape?
We don't need duct tape.
Yeah, we can just put duct tape
No,
on.
we don't need it on there. It'll be fine.
I duct tape everything. All right, Miss Leah, you're up.
Hi. I have Barb with us today.
We're gonna have fun.
We are going to have fun. So it's the Lea and Barb show today. And this week, like I've been alluding to for about 10 days now, is Free Motion Quilting Week. And yesterday I walked you through some of the kind of the basics that you might need to make your life super happy. Okay, so Barb, do you have our quilt sandwich ready to go?
I have. This is a panel, and Dawn's cutting some more. This is the larger of the panel, and it's specifically designed to let you learn and practice some basic free motion shapes. It even has little arrows printed right on the fabric to get you started. So, but it's pretty enough that when you're all done, you can cut them up, use them for placemats. You could hang the whole thing on the wall, say, this is how I started and this is how I finished. Look how much I've improved.
And if this is a practice piece that you're not in love with because it's a learning experience, you will learn more as you practice than just sitting there saying, I'm never going to be good at free motion quilting. It is something that's going to take you time and practice to get better with. So don't be afraid to sit down and poke and try things, because the worst that happens is you get to turn that into dog beds or mug mats or
Picnic blankets.
Picnic blankets. There's so many places to take practice pieces that it's not a showpiece. It's a learning experience.
That's why they're practices.
Barb, what machine are you quilting on today?
I'm quilting on a Brother, very similar to the one that I have at home. This is the BQ 3050. It's a great little machine. Lots of options just on the basic screen. Lots of built-in stitches. 11¼ inches here. So look at this. Look at this.
That's a lot of space for quilting.
And tomorrow we're going to see something with even more space if you like to work on big projects. But this is a really good size. You can do.
Can you
big
show us
quilts.
your big extension table?
Sure.
So lots of machines might not ship with a big extension table, but there's a very good chance that there is a big extension table that will fit your machine. So if you need more space to hold up your quilt, the Berninas have a bigger acrylic extension, and then the Brothers have more like these white plastic extension tables, but it's a ton of workspace.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I just automatically sit down, turn the machine on, and I have a pattern of buttons that I push. So I've got it in quilting, I've got it in a center position for the needle, because I'm using the little C foot here, so just a little tiny dot there, and you want to make sure your needle's going to go in the hole and not hit the foot. And then I usually use this default button here, which means when I stop sewing, it will be needle down and presser foot up. So I can rotate what I'm working on easily without hitting any of the other buttons.
And then how do you drop your feed dogs? Because when you're free motion quilting, your feed dogs are not pulling your fabric.
Are down. So on this machine, it's an automatic. See, when I turn that off, it's asking for the J foot, which is your standard foot. But when I hit that, it says it's now ready. So that basically electronically tells the machine not to use the feed dogs.
So on some of the Brothers with this type of interface, it'll be kind of a dotted swirly line and something that looks like a C on its side.
That's the other free motion foot here that they're kind of picturing. You can have the open toe one like that.
How do you decide whether to use the open toe or regular free motion foot? It's a very personal decision, I would say, on that.
Yeah.
I like a toe with lots of visibility, so I'm much more likely to use something with a big opening in the bottom. I'll quilt on a Bernina in a minute here. That C foot is not spring loaded, but it will hop just on how the machine is built. and it's got a really tiny little hole. So visibility wise, now that we have fabric in there.
Yeah. Part of what I use to choose is also the texture of the fabric and the batting. Now this is quite small, so, but there's nothing to catch on this. If I was free motioning to stitch my doilies down, I would definitely use one of the big plastic feet that's not going to hook on stuff. Certainly not something like that.
Yeah. So there's not one right option for all quilting.
Try it and see what you like.
How important is it to put the straight stitch plate in your machine when you're doing free motion? I would say it's not absolutely critical on a brother, just because of how the stitches formed on the brother and where the hook is. On the Berninas, you will definitely get a cleaner stitch because there's less room for your needle to flex in and out.
Does the fact that the brother is a drop-in bobbin as opposed to a front load bobbin, is that
it just kind of the rotation of how the hook goes makes a difference?
Good. Because I never bother with a straight stitch plate on mine. So
if you have a Bernina, I would say you probably want one. You'll be happier. Tension wise.
Especially if you're going to start free motioning with specialty threads.
Yeah.
Yeah, most certainly.
There's just less space for things to go weird.
And things love to go weird. So the other thing before we actually start to sew, if you're going to do a lot of free motion, pay attention to how you're sitting and how you're reaching. My big thing at home on this is, because this is a big table, is try and get that machine close enough to your body that your arms are at a comfortable height. This is still a bit high for me. Try and get your foot in a comfortable position.
Sewing ergonomics.
Sewing ergonomics. Because you don't want to be like this, and you don't want to be hunched. You want to be able to sit up comfortably and relax.
Usually I get pain through here and down through here in my shoulders if the table's the wrong height.
Yeah. And if you're short like I am, I know at home I have my foot pedal on a block of wood or a stack of books or you know, anything like that that's going to raise it up so that your foot is comfortable. And last but not least, you got to take your shoe off. I just always kick mine off. Okay, shall we sew? Shall we sew?
Yeah.
Make it sew, number one.
Okay. Can you show us how to pull up your bobbin thread? Because I'm guessing that's the first thing you're doing.
That's the first thing I'm doing. So, first of all, make sure you have a nice long piece of bobbin thread. Needle down, needle up. I'm going to lift the presser foot, give it a little tug, and there's that bobbin thread.
Now we have all our tails on the top.
Yeah, all the tails. I have a really long tail here. Okay, so, and then at that point, I'm going to start to sew. Now, if you're a beginner, make friends with your foot pedal. Okay.
So Barb just raised the speed on this machine all the way up.
So make friends with your foot pedal. There's a nice even speed. But you should be good enough on your foot pedal that you can, it's a different foot pedal than at home. You should be able to just...
So if you're quilting this at home, we're quilting with blue thread in the white space
so that you can
so you guys can see it. If you want to just practice the movement and not necessarily have it be super visible, quilt the white bits with white.
There, see? You should make friends enough with your foot pedal that you can quilt this slowly. Not that you ever would, because you're going to lose some of the nice shape on your quilting. A nice even speed is probably better. Now this machine is not stitch regulated, so part of the practice is moving the fabric at a nice even speed to get uniform stitches.
And that's finding the comfortable place on your foot pedal as well.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about this when I hop onto the Bernina and do almost the same thing.
Now you can see we got this nice little white pathway on this panel, but I'm not too worried about staying right in the center because it's a meander.
And it's art.
And you will find if I was working just on plain fabric, you would get a better look to the quilting if you just move smoothly instead of saying, oh, I'm crooked here, I better correct. It's the little corrections that give it that jerky look.
So think about it like driving your car down the highway.
Yeah.
You don't change lanes with a sharp veer. You change lanes slowly. So if you're not headed the way you want to go, don't do a hard jerk to the left. Aim the car slightly to the left and you will get there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see on this panel now, if I speed up the machine, I have to move a little faster. And I'm not going to stay on the line quite as well, but it's a meander.
Speed is a comfort thing.
Yeah.
So if you're, depending how fast you normally like to put fabric through your machine, I know Barb does a lot of free motion quilting, so she's pretty comfortable going higher speeds, and so am I. If I'm trying to do something new, usually I slow down a whole bunch.
Yeah. You know, if I was free motioning around an image or around some embroidery, I'd be inclined to go a little slower and more precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that. But, and then I usually tell people when they're working on this panel, once you've got the hang of it, break out of the box. That just because this is a meander doesn't mean you can't go back in afterwards in that nice little turquoise area and do something else. Now you can see how I'm holding on to this fabric like this. Go grab me the sweet spots.
Sure.
I don't know if you can see these stitches down there. Not terribly well.
We'll pull it off in a minute.
Yeah.
Zooming in.
I think what I notice when I'm free motioning is, yes, unless you're working on a stitch regulated machine, you will have different stitch lengths, but overall it's not going to matter.
Okay.
These are the most awesome things for free motion quilting on anything where you are moving the quilt. These are by Handy Quilter, but they're a scale that works on most domestic machines. They're called sweet spots, and it's kind of a little clingy pad and these little plastic buttons. When you're trying to free motion without them, the tendency is to keep your hands really flat and tense, and then you grip like this with the little fingernails.
And then you grip with your teeth and your neck.
Yeah, you bunch it up like this or whatever. These guys cling so well, and they're just high enough. Once you put your hand on them, your hand assumes a more comfortable position, and they cling. They're just amazing. I'm going to put it on the fabric. And what I like of these over like gloves, or I've had the little rubber fingers and so on, is like, oops, the phone's ringing, and you can pick it up. That just sits there. You don't have to pull off a glove.
On days when it's like 30 and you're hiding from the heat and you're quilting,
you don't want gloves on.
Gloves are definitely
or
warmer.
you know, you want to take a bite of your cookie. You don't want your gloves. Yeah.
So that's why they're called sweet spots, because you can take a break and have a sweet snack.
That's right. But if you're doing larger pieces, of course, as you move through the piece, you don't have to remove anything. You just pick them up and move them. And I'm pretty sure everybody I've ever shown these to in person in free motion classes has bought them. The minute they try them, they go, oh yeah, gotta have those.
I'll admit, it's a tool I don't have.
Oh my gosh. And yes, you can even use them with your rulers because they will cling to the ruler. Yeah, once you get that speed that is just like, it sounds right.
and feels right.
Quilting is a multi-sensory experience, I find, because when I quilt, whether it's on this kind of machine or on the big long arms, it's not just watching what's going on. I think a good third of it is listening. You can hear when your bobbin's running out. You can hear when something isn't quite right on your machine. And you can hear when you've got that nice, steady chunking of the needle through the fabric. You can hear when your needle is needing changing. And if you're quilting along and all of a sudden you hear a funny sound, stop. Figure out what it is. Oh, it was that chocolate chip got in underneath there. And
So the fun thing here is, because this is a practice panel, if you're quilting along with us, go over the same section more than once. Don't feel like you can only quilt that section one time. If a meander's not a movement that makes sense to your body and to your brain, go over it again and again. We'll call it thread painting.
because a lot of it is your head might know the shape, but your body has to. You're using these muscles. You're not using these quite so much. Your head may know it wants to go this way, but until you train those muscles that you don't usually use, you're going to be thinking through the design. Again, it's kind of like driving a car. When you're driving down the street, you're not thinking of stay between the lines, stay between the lines.
But you are on your first day.
On your first day, but if you've driven for a while, you're thinking, I'm going this way, and your body knows how to guide the car smoothly between the lines. So you can see it's not perfectly on the line. You can see on the back how keeping the even speed and smooth curves, even though I wasn't completely on the lines, still gives a nice, smooth, meandered look.
That's awesome. What block can I do?
What would you like to do, Leah? So meanders often, I don't find meander to be the easiest design, but it's usually,
I think meandering takes brain power.
Yeah, it's usually the one
I'm good at this.
Start with.
Can I do this one?
Do you want to do the peas in a pod?
Is that what that's called?
That's called peas in a pod. Or do you want to do the pebbles?
Oh no, I'm not good at pebbles.
On this one.
I'm no good at pebbles, so I should probably do that as a demo. I'll do pebbles. It's fine.
Yeah, because we want to stay on this side of the panel because we want to save that side for the big guys.
Okay. Barb's got a plan. That's
Yeah.
great. She's so organized.
I want to show them this thing on the thread spool.
It's the smallest spool cap.
Yeah, those are wonderful. That's all I ever use at home, especially with this style of spool, because the thread comes off nice and smooth and doesn't get caught on things. Sometimes you'll get spool caps like this, and they work great on other styles of spool. What would you use this kind of thread cap for?
The bigger.
Oh yeah, like your Percentia, something like that.
Yeah.
It's going to help guide it off smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. But most of my threads at home are the Isacord style spool, and those little bitty guys are wonderful. What you got there?
I have a foot I haven't played with.
Oh.
So we're gonna quilt with this one first.
Okay.
So this is Bernina's newest foot. It's the number 74. So it's a big clear bowl.
Yeah.
And the advantage to something like this, visibility is really, really good. That's really, really clear. Mm-hmm. It does have a little bit wider opening, which gives you some options on a Bernina of doing a bit of a zigzag when like a free motion quilt, but that's a conversation for a completely different day. It's height adjustable. So if you were trying to quilt over a big, thick batting, or there was lots of applique that was big and thick, this would ride up and over some of those seams better.
It's also handy if you're quilting things with a lot of thick seams, because I have them for the long arm, like a Bargello, where the average foot just might catch on those thicker seams, or you want to quilt over some applied rickrack. It just skims over some of those things.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to quilt a t-shirt quilt and you've got those little edges
Yeah.
that we tell people not to put on their quilt, but they do anyways.
There's no quilt police, Barb.
I know.
There's no quilt police.
So it's nice that these companies have come out with feet that get you over the humps.
Yeah. So on this machine, you do need to physically push in the button to drop the feed dogs. Which lots of the Berninas, it's out at the end.
Yep. There we go.
And then feed dogs aren't controlling it. This is not a stitch regulated foot. I'm going to throw the BSR on in a minute. I quilt a fair bit at work, as some of you may have noticed. So same thing. I'm going to do a needle up, needle down on the Bernina here. I can do that with the back kick on my foot pedal. So I'm going to drop the needle, raise the needle. We'll figure this out. I'm going to get stuck in a minute because I haven't actually really done pebbles before.
The trick with doing pebbles is you almost always have to overstitch at least half of the circle. When we're free motioning pebbles without a guide, we use a mantra that goes clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. There we go. So you can see how you have to overstitch. Perfect.
And then already I'm finding this like way too much fabric to manage. So we're going to switch to, don't put the needle down, silly machine. I'm going to find something to hold that.
Yeah, it's awkward.
This is what I have at home. Machiners. My hand is that size. So you know what size to buy with them all on?
If you have a minute, I have an open pair in the long arm that have just been freshly washed.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
They'll sit for a few days before they find a home. But they're grippy at the ends.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a hot-blooded person, so.
And she's not eating chocolate chip cookies right now.
Right. So we're good. To stop and think.
A lot of free motion quilting does involve that, okay, where do I go now? Pause for a moment. That's why I like having the default needle down, no matter which machine you're working on, because you can pause and
Ooh,
there we
back
go.
To that?
Where are you going?
I don't know.
These panels are designed with they cut off at the edge, so that's a nice place to travel down to the next section.
Barb didn't show you pulling up your threads at the end, so I'm going to do that. To finish your stitch and pull your threads up to the bottom, if you don't want thread tangles on the back, I would highly suggest doing it.
Yeah.
You can raise your needle, raise your foot. You're going to pull a length of, like, move your quilt sandwich and pull a loop.
Yep.
Go back to where you were. Drop your needle back in the hole. Raise your needle again. And pull back up. And this time you should have 3 threads coming out of your fabric. We're going to trim all 3 threads.
There we go.
And I'm going to switch feet. Because if keeping things consistent is not your forte.
So let's look at Leah's. Now, is this a stitch regulated machine that you're working on?
Not with this foot.
Okay.
Not with this foot. In a moment it will be.
Okay.
We're going to switch gears. we're going to switch to the laser guided magic foot.
Ooh.
So the Bernina stitch regulator is essentially like laser guided magic foot. And if you've been free motion quilting for years and years and years, you might actually not like it because it takes over control and speed. But it's measuring how fast your fabric is moving and regulating the speed that the machine is stitching to accommodate whether you're a pokey slow quilter or a bit of a speed demon. So if I wasn't doing pebbles and struggling, I would outrun the stitch regulator because I quilt pretty quickly. But for what I'm doing today in pebbles, this will be excellent.
So you just so you've added the foot there,
and I've plugged it in at the back, and then it turns on into stitch regulation. And there's 2 different modes in there, and I'm just going to lengthen the stitch length up to 3.
Okay.
Because I like a default of 3 better. So I'm actually going to start in mode 2. And I'm going to unplug my foot pedal and take it out of the equation.
Okay.
And the reason to do this, if you've got a new Bernina and you're learning to free motion quilt, is that speed control with your foot is a brain challenging thing when you're trying to like figure out where to go. So you're trying to think, how fast does my foot need to move to keep my needle moving the right speed? So we're going to take something out of the equation and make life a little easier. And I've done what I always do when I have gloves. I've lost one.
You can already see how the pebbles that have been quilted around are looking a little puffier than the pebbles that have not been quilted around. You can really see it on the screen here. It looks great.
I like texture. I really like texture. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do needle up, needle down, but my foot pedal's not plugged in.
Okay.
So I'm going to start this with the start stop button on screen. Mode 2 is only going to stitch when I move that full 3 millimeters in any direction. So light turns on the foot's red, and it's waiting for me to move. But when I get stuck over here, and I need to pause and think about where I'm going,
kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it. So the faster you move the fabric, the faster the machine will stitch. I can hear all those Bernina owners saying the same thing that, who was he? In Independence Day. I have got to get me one of those.
So I'm not going super fast, but it is keeping, and I pause to think and readjust my hands. And so for something like this that's a new thing for me, the stitch regulators evened out some of the wobbles because I'm not thinking about how fast my foot's going. Oh, we gotta go around that one twice.
It's called highlighting.
Oh, okay. I knew there was a word for it. We're gonna think again. And my foot's not controlling our speed here. The BSR here, I'm just gonna finish. I've only got a little corner of that. I'm actually gonna plug that foot pedal back in.
Okay.
Go to mode 1. Normally, personally, I like mode 1, and mode 1 has a bit of it has an idle rate, so it's actually gonna start stitching when I plug it in. Sometimes that will give you smoother curves and sharper corners. So personally, that's where I like it. The foot pedal at this point is not speed control. It is just an on-off switch, which also is a brain thing where you have to figure out that it's an on-off switch, not a gas pedal.
You keep pushing and think, why isn't it going faster? Yeah.
But if I stop to think, it's going to keep stitching in place. I don't really want the pileup of stitches anywhere.
Yeah, you want to try not to let that needle stitch too much in one spot It has been known to actually cut through the thread, and then you have to re-thread, and it's a nuisance.
And then again, I can raise my needle, raise my foot, pull that loop, drop my foot. All of these things, once you get the hang of it, they get easier. And then lift your... And then we'll find out if I hit all the pebbles or if I missed some.
And the easiest way to tell is turn it over and look at the back.
And there's some that got 2 and some that only got 3/4 of a pebble.
Which is actually quite common. Ooh! How about that? That looks really
So it looks
good.
like it looks like pebbles.
It looks like you know what you were doing.
It's all smoke and mirrors. No, it is not something I've quilted a lot of, but I've definitely missed a few ins and outs. Mm-hmm. But I know that as a quilter, and Barb knows that as a quilter. But if you're practicing, you're only going to get better.
That's right.
You're only going to get better the more you practice.
And this particular kit has got Kona on the back, purposely so you can look and see how well you did and figure out where you need to practice more. If you were tackling your first quilt that you were going to give to a granddaughter for a birthday present, you might be inclined to put, one of those lovely floral prints on the back, because then the little oopses don't show.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, it's really fun. It's art. I really want to do one of the sashing pieces.
Well, why don't you do the sashing?
Okay. But same thing. It just walks you through another movement.
Yeah.
And
quilters have given some of these designs fancy names. This one is just basically up and down. The one that you were pointing at before is like a ribbon candy.
yeah.
This guy up here is a ribbon candy design, like the Christmas candy. Free motioning is one of those things that you should be able to settle into it. It can be actually quite relaxing once you get going with the movement. Put on some nice music, headphones, lock the door.
Right amount of coffee and or wine. Hold your tongue just right.
Remember to breathe.
Right.
You make this look so easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Does that make sense? It does take practice, and Lea has had lots of practice.
And then I'm actually just going to stitch a couple of things right in place, and then...
That was something that we didn't do, like I know I didn't do, and Lea showed you how to bring up your bobbin thread to the top. But I like to do a few tacking stitches at the beginning and at the end of the quilting, because you don't want to go to all that work and then have it slowly pull out.
Yeah. So usually I just do a couple, like here I did a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger knot.
We got it.
But if that was gray on there, you wouldn't see
That's
it.
right, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to show you a couple other machines tomorrow. Give you more options.
Yes, for sure.
Because there's no, like, by all means, you can quilt like this on any machine.
Mm-hmm.
Any machine out there, you can do this. Almost every machine. Even the old mechanical singers had darning feet, and this is essentially a glorified darning foot. So it doesn't matter what you have, you can free motion quilt. Just the tools that are available to you vary greatly.
Yeah.
And things that are going to make your life easier for free motion is more space. maybe some gloves, maybe a foot with different visibility.
Maybe later in the week when we're free motioning, we can also maybe add some other threads to see what sort of a look you can get with some of the heavier threads. Ooh. Yes.
Barb and I are thread junkies.
Yes.
I think we need a metallic feather. Hollow shimmer feather?
Hollow shimmer, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's my favorite thread in the whole world.
So yeah, don't be afraid to jump in and just little bits of at a time. Even 10-15 minutes a day of free motioning is going to get you better faster. It's not, you don't need to sit down for 8 hours and get your neck all crunched up as you're learning. A few minutes here and there is going to make a difference in your skills. So deep breath.
For sure.
If it's like a Friday night glass of wine kind of thing, then do that. If it's the first thing in the morning when you're fresh and the light's better in your room, do it then. You don't ever have to show anybody this panel.
No. But I want to show them some of the other fun things on this panel. I love this design. It's called Paisley.
I'm good at those.
Yeah, it's a wonderful design. Once you're good at Paisley, it's nothing to put a little dip in the top there and do nested hearts or leaves. I think the hearts are on the other side of the panel there.
Yep.
So you have hearts. If you can do that, then that's really no problem for you. I think we're going to work over on some of these guys tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then the panel also has a nice meandering leaf design on it that is really a nice stitch to master for filling in the large areas around an applique or a piece of embroidery.
Yep.
And swirls.
I like swirls.
I like swirls too.
And this
What
one's
else is on there?
a little
That's
loopy.
your basic loop. Yeah.
It's kind of like a meander with a curly Q in it.
Yeah.
So, day one. Take it
Day
easy.
one.
Day one.
Relax.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Tomorrow, same
more.
time, same station, different machines.
Thank you, Barb, for day one.
Bye.
Stay safe, stay calm, be kind, and let's isolate all week. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.